Good Sunday afternoon, everyone. Breaking news is happening right now on 12 News this Sunday afternoon, and we are bringing you that breaking news after weeks of pressure to step aside from leaders in his own party. In just the last few hours, President Joe Biden says that he will indeed end his re-election campaign. The announcement coming just 4 months before Election Day. The 46th President of the United States breaking the news in a statement posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, saying in part, quote, "While it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision," end quote. As always, thank you for joining us here on 12 News Online digitally. I'm Jonathan McCall, sitting alongside 12 News political journalist and moderator of Sunday Square Off, Bram Resnick. Bram, let's get into it. This all started with a debate, a poor performance at a debate. Some weeks later, the president has now dropped out, giving his seal of approval to his vice president.
That's right. Very important. He did endorse Kamala Harris in saying that he would step aside. So Kamala Harris now endorsed by Joe Biden. We are now seeing a stream of people endorsing Kamala Harris for vice president. We are entering, as you probably know, uncharted waters here. A president stepping down just 3.5 months before Election Day, and a convention perhaps in just a few weeks in Chicago for the Democratic Party, where they're going to have to pick another nominee for the party. We don't know yet whether there will be any competition for Kamala Harris. That is possible. Here in Arizona, we have seen Attorney General Chris Mays and several others stepping up to endorse her. Some others have remained silent. They are people like Greg Stanton thanking President Biden for his service, not saying who he'd endorse. You will recall Stanton was one of the Arizona congressmen who called on Biden to step aside. So the big unknown is what happens in the next 24 to 48 hours. Does Kamala Harris line up enough endorsements to keep other potential Democrats out of the race, and also perhaps announce a vice presidential running mate?
This really is a very compact schedule that they have to really get through in a short amount of time. Can you talk a little bit about, you talked a little bit about what's going to be unfolding in the next 24 hours or so. The vice president now has been to Arizona several times in the last few months. Big picture, obviously you're going to need Arizona to win. What does this do for the Democratic ticket here, at least in Arizona?
So let's put Arizona in a new perspective. We've been talking for months now, if not years, about Arizona being a battleground state. It's not clear that we're a battleground state anymore, at least as of now, and at least as of the polling until now. Donald Trump has a lead of 3 to 5 points in the polls. That does not make us a battleground anymore. The talk has been that the battleground states left to President Biden were Pennsylvania and Michigan, and the third one in the blue, because I should know this because I live there, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The so-called blue wall were the only 3 battleground states that President Biden could possibly win to get to 270 electoral votes. Arizona had fallen into the second tier. So back to your larger point, where does that leave us? As you know, and if you've been paying attention to the news over the last several days, Senator Mark Kelly, Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, has been rumored to be a potential vice presidential pick for Kamala Harris to help kind of shore up a battleground state here in Arizona. But as we were saying just a minute ago, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, also a strong candidate in a state the president, and it appears if Kamala Harris is the nominee or whoever is the nominee, would need to win Pennsylvania.
What does she need to be looking for now that she does have the seal of approval from the president? What does she need to be looking for in a potential vice president candidate?
You need to be looking for somebody who's compatible and somebody who can do one thing. And you know what that one thing is?
What is that?
Win the vice presidential debate against J.D. Vance. That person has to be able to prosecute the Democrats' case against Republican J.D. Vance in the vice presidential debate. And that's about it. How many people vote for the vice president? They don't. They vote for the person at the top of the ticket. That's going to be the one shining moment. Who can do that best of all, I think, is a very important metric standard for the Democrats' vice presidential nominee to meet. Again, need to make it clear, Vice President Kamala Harris is not the nominee, but she certainly has a head of steam after President Biden's announcement today.
She's also,
and I think we have Steve Slugocki on the line with us right now. We're trying to reach out to delegates, to Biden delegates, to see how they're processing this news. On the phone with us right now is Stephen Slugocki. He is a former chair of the Maricopa County Democratic Party and also a Biden delegate. Stephen, are you there?
I am here. Thank you for having me, Bram.
You and I have talked over the last several days. How surprised are you by this news and that the president made this announcement today?
You know, first off, I just want to thank you guys for having me on. Today is obviously a historic day. It's a day of American history that we will remember for a very long time. It's a sad day. It's an emotional day. Joe Biden has been one of the most consequential presidents of our lifetimes, and I want to thank him for his lifetime of service to our country and our party. You know, that being said, today is about looking forward, and that person is Kamala Harris, who is going to be our nominee and lead us to victory this November. So I'm proud to support her. I know a lot of people are very excited about this, and Arizona will be a battleground state, Bram, just like, 2020. We're going to win this state again.
Have Arizona delegates talked amongst themselves yet about this and what comes next?
So, yes, there's a lot of, I don't want to say confusion, but, this is unprecedented. This is uncharted waters that we're in now. So a lot of people, the delegates that I've talked to that are very supportive of Kamala Harris, and moving forward, we've got this virtual roll call. We're not sure exactly how that's going to happen, but it's supposed to happen in the next, couple weeks here. So this is all unprecedented. But again, I think people are excited about the possibilities we have in front of us now with Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket.
And just to explain that virtual roll call, the state of Ohio has left some confusing information, left it up in the air as to when the Democratic Party would have to tell the state who its nominee is. It was supposed to be August 7th. That was pushed back. The Democratic National Committee, however, says, no, we need to take a virtual vote on the nominee before, sorry, did I say April 7th? I meant August 7th. By August 7th or so, which is almost 2 weeks before the actual convention itself. So leaving that aside for a moment, how comfortable are you? How comfortable do you think other delegates are with just leaving Kamala Harris as the prohibitive nominee or opening it up to other potential candidates, other governors who might want to get into a nomination fight?
I think the best way to honor President Biden's service and what he's done for this country is to respect his wishes, and that is to elect and nominate Kamala Harris as our nominee. I think in the next 24 to 48 hours, you're going to see a lot of party leaders, statesmen, Barack Obama, we've seen Nancy Pelosi, come to support Kamala Harris. Again, I think the best way to support and respect the wishes of our president is to make sure that Kamala Harris is our nominee.
That is interesting. The Clintons have come out in support of Kamala Harris, but not Barack Obama or Nancy Pelosi, who may have been the puppet master here, so to speak.
Sure. But I think at the moment they're giving Joe Biden his due. They're giving him his roses that he deserves at the moment. I think we will see them come out in support of her very soon. But yes, it is going to be very interesting. But I, for one, am excited to see a prosecutor go up against a convicted felon in this election.
I guess, Stephen, the question I would have is, if someone is thinking of this, of potentially challenging this, is it political suicide for them to do so?
I would believe so. Again, I don't see anybody going against her. Maybe somebody will make a run at it. But I think with the endorsement of President Biden, I think she will be our nominee. I'm also excited to see who she's going to pick as her vice presidential person. I think Senator Mark Kelly from Arizona is a phenomenal choice, and he would really bring Arizona into the true battleground states. I think he would bring a lot to the ticket.
All right. Stephen Slugocki, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thanks for your time, guys. Have a great day.
Take care.
As we were mentioning, that once again, President Joe Biden has dropped out of the race for the White House. Again, that announcement coming in just the last few hours, as we were saying, after weeks of mounted pressure from members of his own party, the Democratic Party, after what some would say was a very weak debate against former President Donald Trump in that first debate. I'm actually looking forward to September because there's going to be another presidential debate. And if the stars and moons kind of all align, and if Democrats are looking to put their weight behind Kamala Harris, we would definitely see Kamala Harris and Donald Trump on a stage together going at it. So it would be very interesting to see how that would play.
It would be interesting. You know, the reporting has been that the Trump campaign has been preparing for Joe Biden, and they had a very finely crafted campaign, ways to attack Joe Biden, his weaknesses that they thought would be a winner with voters. And so far, the polling would seem to back them up. Now, they have to shift gears. Kamala Harris is a very different kind of candidate, as you and I think Stephen pointed out, a former prosecutor who we have seen here several times. I have seen in person several times. And I will say is very effective at prosecuting the Democratic case against the Republicans. As vice president, she's been under fire for not doing the job especially well, whatever the vice president's job might be. Questions about that. I think they get set aside when it comes to the election. You need a campaigner, not necessarily a president, though certainly voters will assess what they believe to be the presidential capacity and abilities of the candidate. But certainly, given what we saw of Joe Biden in that disastrous debate, at least by that measure, Kamala Harris, I have to think, would be an improvement. Yep. Although you never know when somebody is under that spotlight in that moment where the stakes are as high as they can be.
For someone who may not necessarily be aware of her history, as you mentioned, she has a long history as a prosecutor in the Bay Area in San Francisco and Alameda County, then moving across to San Francisco, becoming the Attorney General of the state of California. She held that position for 2 terms, then ran for Senate, and then was appointed, then obviously chosen by by President Biden on his ticket. For folks who may not necessarily be aware of her background and what she does bring to the table, is this an opportunity to kind of reintroduce her to the American public?
It is an opportunity to reintroduce herself and also to deal with some of the reputation that's built up over the last 4 years. Somebody who can't do the job. Early on, she was given a thankless job by President Biden, which was to be kind of an immigration czar. That, as it turned out, was not a great move. It's unclear what the job description was. She certainly didn't have much, if any, impact on what happened at the border. So that's something she's going to have to deal with and also explain to voters. But again, you know, it's the vice president, and as what Senator John McCain once said, vice president's job is to go to funerals and inquire daily about the president's health. So not much of a job there. Are we going to go to Daniel Hernandez now? Okay, so right now joining us on the phone is another Biden delegate, former state representative Daniel Hernandez of Tucson. Daniel, can you hear us?
Yes, Bram. How are you? Thank you for having me on.
Good. Thanks so much for joining us. You told me earlier you're going to be seeing Vice President Harris later in the week?
Yeah, so my sister, Representative Alma Hernandez, and I are headed to D.C. on Thursday for an event at her residence for Latino leaders. So we were already headed to D.C. Not sure if this will change plans. I hope it does, as much as I'd love to see her on Thursday.
What is your feeling about President Biden endorsing her as the nominee?
You know, I think it makes the most sense for a lot of different reasons. And I think the first thing we got to acknowledge is all the great work that the Biden-Harris administration has done for Arizona, whether it's the CHIPS Act or whether it's the Respect for Marriage Act, they have delivered results. So having Kamala Harris, who, and I just heard the last 2 seconds of your last segment saying her job is not that important. I would disagree. I think she's been one of the chief spokeswomen and chief spokespeople for the Biden administration, talking about the need for us to be able to get some of these things done. So when we're looking at the future of the Democratic Party and the nomination for president, it is something that it makes so much sense for Vice President Harris to be the one at the top of the ticket. And I'm hoping it'll be a Harris and Kelly ticket, because I know that not only could we use the help for Arizona, but for all of the down ballot races here in Arizona, having, I think, a Harris-Kelly ticket would do so much for Arizona, for our legislative races, for the U.S. Senate race with Ruben Gallego. So I'm excited about this, and I think it's the right pick, and it's the right move by President Biden to be backing Kamala Harris right away, and she needs to be the Democratic nominee.
Let's talk about that Harris-Kelly ticket. For folks who don't know your history, you helped save Gabby Gifford's life after the Tucson shootings in 2011. Went on to serve in the legislature. You have a pretty deep connection to Tucson, certainly to Gabby Giffords and Mark Kelly. Do you have any personal insight into whether Mark Kelly is interested in being a vice presidential nominee?
I've known Mark since I was 18 years old when I first interned for Gabby Gifford's campaign. The thing that I know about Mark Kelly is he is ready to do whatever he can to serve our country, whether it was as a fighter pilot, as an astronaut, and now as the senator from Arizona. So I think if he were asked, he would be a great candidate. He would also be somebody that would be up to the job and would do it because he believes truly and deeply in serving our state and serving our country. So I think the sense of duty and responsibility, I have never seen somebody who has such a strong sense of moral clarity and responsibility as Mark Kelly. So I think a Harris-Kelly ticket would make so much sense for this campaign and for the entire country, because it would put a lot of states back in play that I think a few months ago or a few days ago people were worried about, not just Arizona.
What's your sense about what might be going on in delegations in other states, about how comfortable they are with this decision, and whether other delegations, other elected officials might want to see an open contest for the nomination? And do you think there should be an open contest for it?
I've been talking to other delegates across the country. One of the good and bad things of having been a former state legislator is I have friends all over the country who are legislators, many of whom are delegates. And I think the one thing that we all keep hearing is we have 107 oddish days to go. We need to unify behind Kamala Harris and make sure that we do everything we can to make sure that she's able to make the case against Donald Trump's second administration and second term. So I think what I'm hearing is a lot of excitement and a lot of people who are saying we got to go and make sure we get behind Kamala as soon as possible to make sure that we can make the case with less than 130 days to go before the election, to prove to people why we need to, continue the Biden-Harris agenda and the legacy that Biden started, but make sure that we prevent Donald Trump from becoming president for a second term. So I've not heard anything other than excitement. I think you're hearing some folks saying they want an open contest. I think right now what we need to focus in on is we have 100-ish days to go to beat Donald Trump, and that needs to be our focus, not an inter-party squabble. Vice President Harris has shown for years that she is a good partner to President Biden, and she knows that she's going to have to make her case. And that's why she said she wants to be going out there for the nomination and earn the nomination. So whether there's an open contest or not, I think we're going to see a lot of people rallying behind Vice President Harris. And that's why we're seeing AG Chris Mays, Senator Mark Kelly, folks all across the country, from the chair of the Progressive Caucus to competitive district senators like Mark Kelly coming out and endorsing Vice President Harris right away.
How do you make that case, or how does she make that case, to voters not only here in Arizona, but also across the country as well?
I think the case is really easy to make against Donald Trump. We are going to have a former prosecutor going against somebody who has been accused and convicted of several crimes, whether they were the sex crimes and, the allegations against multiple women, or whether it's the crimes that he was just convicted of in New York. He is somebody who is a criminal. He is a felon. And we are going to have a former district attorney, a former attorney general, former senator, and now vice president of the United States being able to make the case in a way that I think very few other people could, that she is the candidate for law and order. She is the candidate for making sure that we're focusing on what's good for our party and for our country, not just what's good for themselves. And I think that's something that we've seen from Vice President Harris all along. She is somebody who's shown that she is willing to do what she can to help our country and to help when she was a senator from California, the state of California.
So I'm going to put you on the spot, Daniel, because I'm betting if Kamala Harris is the nominee, J.D. Vance's first question to her will be, what did you know about President Biden's health, and when did you know it? In other words, were you hiding what we've come to learn over the last several weeks? Can she handle that question?
If nothing else, I think Vice President Harris is able to communicate clearly and effectively. She has talked about her experience with President Biden in the Situation Room just recently. I think it was yesterday or the day before she was putting out statements. But I think here's the thing. Biden is no longer on the ticket, and the conversation is going to have to be a referendum on a second Trump term versus a Harris term. That is going to be the thing that we need to focus in on. And I think J.D. Vance is going to have a lot of things to answer for as, you know, a 1.5-year senator from Ohio against somebody like Mark Kelly, who has a track record of having delivered for Arizona and now for the country. So I think it's a valid question. I am more than sure that she's going to be able to answer it because she is one of the strongest communicators and debaters that we have in the entire Democratic Party right now. And that's why I think I'm supporting her and so many others are starting to line up behind her right away.
Daniel Hernandez, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Brian.
All right, if you are just now joining us, it is 2:30 Sunday afternoon. You are watching live breaking news coverage right here on 12 News Digital and 12news.com. President Joe Biden has ended his bid for a second term in the White House in the last few hours. All of this coming weeks after mounted pressure from the Democratic Party for him to step aside, pass the torch, so to speak, after that disastrous debate against former President Donald Trump. We want to continue our coverage right now. 12 News journalist William Pitts is standing by with Raquel Teran, a former Arizona state senator, now running for Congress as a Democrat in District 3. Hey, Will.
Yeah, that's right. Raquel Teran was the head of the Arizona Democratic Party in 2022. So, Raquel, you've got a little bit more experience with how things go at a national level. Were you surprised that this happened today?
Look, first I have to say thank you to President Joe Biden for his leadership and everything that happened under his watch. From historic pieces of legislation where we had gun reform, we lowered prescription drug prices, as well as a historic infrastructure bill. So really, I am excited that we now have an opportunity, with him endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris, to elect the first woman to be president of the United States.
You're obviously running in a very blue district,
yes,
and not unopposed, of course. But how does this kind of impact your race going forward? You've got 9 days until the primary.
Well, we need to get through our primary, but this district will be integral to make sure that we deliver the presidency for Democrats. It's a Democratic district, it's a Latino district, and we need to ensure that this district overperforms for the top of the ticket all the way to the bottom of the ticket. So I know that if we as Democrats can rally around Vice President Harris, we will have the energy and we will deliver Arizona one more time.
And we've been talking about this for a little while now, but Arizona was seen as purple, maybe leaning a little blue. Now there's a little bit of bump in the Republican side. He's ahead just a couple of points. How important is it for you guys to kind of keep the pressure on? Do you think Arizona will stay purple, or do you think it's swinging to the right?
We have an incredible infrastructure. Number one, we have progressive groups like Planned Parenthood, Lucha, the unions, who are working hard every single day to engage working families in the district. We have a strong Democratic Party, and we have great candidates. The Republicans have always, in the last years, have presented the most extreme people. So we have an opportunity to make our case again to the voters with real results that will make people's realities better. So I'm sure that we will deliver Arizona one more time.
So as a former chair of the state party, we're going into a situation now that we have not seen since 1968, a potential open convention. What does that look like? I mean, is that exciting to you guys, or is that kind of terrifying?
I think that we are very clear-eyed with what is on the other side. We are very clear-eyed that we need to defeat Donald Trump and his extremism. So I feel very confident that the Democratic Party will be able to rally and go through a quick process and have our presidential candidate. And I am optimistic that it will be Vice President Kamala Harris.
How does that work, going into a convention like this, not knowing who's got the nomination sewn up?
Well, it's everything. It's a mini campaign, so people are going to have to count their votes, and that's at the end of the day how every campaign is ran. You need to make sure that you know who is voting and ask the question: can we count on your support? But I think that we will be able to rally and unite the party and go into November with a very strong coalition.
So then I have to ask, of course, 9 days out, How are you feeling about your race?
I'm feeling excited. We have great results. We have the support of Senator Mark Kelly. We have the support of Planned Parenthood Action Fund and many, many others. So this moment is to make sure that we get out the vote and they know that they will have a fighter in me and that I will continue to deliver for our communities.
All right. Raquel Teran running for CD3 and former head of the Arizona Democratic Party. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right. Well, thanks so much. We have been getting tons of statements from political leaders on both sides of the aisle about how this has all played out in the last few hours, and it really was a shock. I was sitting in the newsroom this morning when the news came down. We had all been discussing whether or not this could potentially happen today. And around 1:30 Eastern Time, 11:30 here, it's all when this went down. And since then, we again have been getting plenty of statements from a number of political leaders nationally as well as here in Arizona. This is a statement from Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs saying that, quote, President Biden is the embodiment of a public servant. Throughout his career, he has led with integrity, selflessness, and unparalleled empathy. His decision today is a clear reflection of these qualities and his commitment to putting the American people first. I look forward to continuing Arizona's partnership with the Biden administration for the final months of his term, and I know his dedication to moving our state forward remains steadfast. Again, Governor Katie Hobbs,
But
there's no endorsement.
She didn't endorse Kamala Harris. We're told the governors have met, Democratic governors have met at least twice in the last few weeks, most recently late this week, about what might happen. Katie Hobbs put out her statement within minutes
She did.
after Joe Biden, so they got the heads up pretty clearly and probably had that ready in any case. But the governors have been talking amongst themselves. There are a few governors who might want to run for this. J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania, one of the blue wall states the Democrats need. So you have to wonder if Katie Hobbs is keeping her options open for fellow governors or whether there's something else going on. But again, she did not, Arizona's governor did not endorse Kamala Harris.
What have those conversations been like the last few weeks? You mentioned that they have discussed, or the president has had discussions with the governors. We know that there was some concern after that debate. He got on the call with them. There were then some talks for him at that point to try to step down. What have those conversations been like?
Well, what's so interesting is there haven't been as many leaks from those conversations as there have been from members of Congress talking to the president. There seem to be some very carefully placed leaks regarding that. So it's unclear where the governors as a group stand. I think there are about 27 or so governors. They're in a minority nationwide. More state houses are held by Republican governors, but hard to know where they stand. And as I think about it even now, and have been for the last few hours, I'm not sure exactly where Katie Hobbs might stand, whether she's built any alliances, close friendships with any of her fellow governors. She's only been in office, what now, like a year and a half, slightly more than a year and a half, not that long. So we'll have to see how she plays her cards here.
Yeah, and a lot of people will definitely be watching and waiting to see those endorsements. And I think, again, if the Democratic Party wants to have that unified message, they have to do it soon and get behind Kamala Harris. Everyone, as we've heard, people say, they have to do it soon, and everyone has to be on board.
They do, and we should point out, big endorsement today, the Congressional Black Caucus.
Correct.
Has come out for Kamala Harris. Jim Clyburn came out for Kamala Harris. So that's a big one if you want to run for president.
Correct.
You need those folks in your corner.
Yeah, and there has been talk saying that, members of the Congressional Black Caucus were saying, hey, if you want to get in this race, you got to make sure you don't overlook her, or else we're at the base of this party. And without us, you may not have a really good chance of making it.
And an interesting historical footnote again. President Joe Biden didn't necessarily want Kamala Harris as his VP nominee.
Correct.
There was some friction between them at the first debate. In the Democratic primary back in 2020. You'll remember Kamala Harris went directly at Joe Biden, questioned his record on criminal justice when he was in the Senate. The Biden family, the reporting goes, felt stung by that because they believe that Beau Biden, his late son, who was AG of Delaware, had a relationship
with Kamala.
Working relationship with Kamala Harris when she was AG of California. And there was kind of a neutrality idea, you don't go after us, we won't go after you. And then she went after them, and they took it, the Bidens did, they took it personally. And the Bidens had a lot to overcome to put Kamala Harris on the ticket. with Joe Biden. Eventually they did because politically it was the smart thing to do.
Correct. All right, we will definitely be following this. Our coverage will continue in just a few moments. But first, in addition to all of that breaking news, we are also tracking breaking weather this Sunday afternoon. Monsoon storms popping up in the valley. Meteorologist Stella Sun is here now with what the radar is showing, and lots of green and yellow there, Stella.
Lots of green and yellow. We are tracking severe thunderstorms that are rolling through our area. You can see here severe thunderstorms warning remain in effect. So this guy right over here until 2:45, and then this will include areas such as Cave Creek, if you're in the Rio Verde foothills, even in North Phoenix towards the Desert Ridge area. Doppler radar has indicated winds upwards of 60 miles per hour and penny-sized hail. So this is in all of that orange box that you can see over here. So you can see large portions of the valley, including the Cave Creek area, large portions of Fountain Hills as well. You can see the line of thunderstorms sweeping its way south right now. It's about 5 miles northeast of Rio Verde right now, and it's working its way about 25 miles per hour south. On top of this, a severe thunderstorm watch has been implemented by the National Weather Service. This will run until 8 p.m. So in all of this light pink coloring that you see over here, so this includes Maricopa, Pinal, Gila, and Yavapai counties, that's where we could see heavy downpours of rain that could trigger some flash flooding. Strong gusty winds over 35 miles per hour could be possible, as well as the potential for some hail. So right now we are tracking Doppler radar, some of that hail that we showed you there. That is bringing some of that penny-sized hail. So that means we could see some damage to some roofs, some trees. That means if you live in all of this orange box area, you want to check in on the 12 News radar and watch that closely. Maybe move into some of the interior rooms on the lowest levels of your homes to avoid some of the potential for some hail. We also do have this excessive heat warning, and this will run until 8 p.m. That's where we can see those piping hot temperatures upwards of 116 degrees and all of that hot pink coloring for some of our western counties. Let's give you a closer look at Doppler radar right now, where you can see right now all of the severe thunderstorms. It's hitting areas north of Black Canyon City, and actually looks like we might even have some hail falling. You can see that line continuing to work its way right now 5 miles northeast of Rio Verde foothills. Zooming on out, Prescott, you're also in this mix. Camp Verde, portions of Payson just south of it, that we're going to continue to see the line of storms working its way in. Rim country, you're also involved, as well as the White Mountains. And as you start to zoom on out, you can just see the line of thunderstorms moving its way southward. So we're going to continue to be under the severe thunderstorm watch for Maricopa, Pinal, Gila, and Yavapai counties until 8 p.m. So let's talk about some of those impacts. So that watch is going to be in effect until 8 p.m. Storms and some of them could be severe, meaning it could bring some hail, damaging winds, even to your car. If you could bring your car indoors, maybe towards the garage, or even cover it, maybe using a cardboard box, that might be a better bet. Be weather aware tonight. Track radar, download the 12 News weather app if you don't have it already. So I want to show you the severe weather outlook. So we've got this bullseye right here. So this is a slight risk, a 3 out of 6. That is where we could see that potential, as I've been telling you guys, the heavy downpours of rain, some of that flooding that could be triggered with all of that strong gusty winds, upwards of 35 miles per hour or greater. So thunderstorms will be likely, some of them severe. We will remain under that severe thunderstorm watch, and we're going to send it back over to you guys with another check of everything developing in the political world.
All right, Stella, thanks so much for that. We want to continue our live team coverage this afternoon. President Joe Biden has now ended his re-election bid for the White House. Joining us this afternoon right now is Mayor John Giles, Republican from the city of Mesa. Mayor Giles, thanks so much for coming in to join us on the conversation.
Good to be with you.
You've been in office, so everybody knows you are a Republican.
Correct.
Yeah. You've been in office 10 years, leading one of the state's largest cities. You endorsed Joe Biden in 2020. And today you posted a tweet responding to his announcement.
Sure.
Give us the summary.
Sure. Well, I think it was the right thing to do. I stand by the tweet. When a 50-year career comes to an end, and someone who has served our country well, I think John McCain and people in my party of that stature, the first thing they would do would be to say congratulations and thank you for your service, and I think that's the appropriate response. So that was my initial reaction, and I think it was very appropriate.
So civility,
Of course.
Kind of rare, surprising some people on social media, but you also had, frankly, a kind of working relationship with the White House that I think you believe benefited the city of Mesa.
Absolutely. I mean, Infrastructure Week became a reality when Joe Biden came into office, and so the city of Mesa has really been on the receiving end of generous amounts of federal dollars. We go out to the Gateway Airport. I can take you on a tour of a tower and a terminal. The CHIPS Act, everyone in Arizona really ought to be giving Joe Biden a pat on the back for that. Everyone in the Arizona economy is going to be significantly impacted by some of the legislative successes that we've seen under Joe Biden.
And yet, what do you make of the fact that has not broken through with many voters?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's an election year. And so sometimes facts and figures, take a back seat to election propaganda. So I think if someone chooses to listen to Fox News all day, they're going to think Joe Biden was a horrible president, and they're going to think he's a horrible man, and they're going to be mad at people like me who congratulate him on a good career. But I think that's a false picture of reality.
When you talk about how it's helped, you've made that case before. You're also taking a lot of heat from Republicans and have over the last 4 years. We've seen that among other Republicans who've broken with the Trump party, so to speak. How rough has it been for you, the kind of criticism you've received?
Well,
how personal has it gotten?
I learned a long time ago not to read the comments in social media. That is an ugly place, and I feel sorry for people who live there. And really being a mayor is a different stripe, a different animal in politics. We are in the job of getting things done. And so, of course, we come in with some partisan feelings. Everyone does. But more important than that is working with people that want to help you. And the Biden administration, frankly, because of some of the, like I say, the funding that we've been on the receiving end, our city has been well served.
Why do people not know those numbers, those figures? You mentioned the fact that there has been so much help here in Arizona. Why do you think that has not translated, or why do you think that has gotten lost?
Well, again, I'll say during an election year, it's hard to get a straight answer. Fact checking is a full-time job for those of us who are trying to really get a clear picture of what's going on. And this has been an extraordinary time. Actually, the economy is doing fairly well, but if you listen to the propaganda that comes out of political campaigns, you'd think that we're in the deep dark days of the Depression. Some of the legislative accomplishments that we've talked about, like the bipartisan infrastructure act, the CHIPS Act, these are things that I'm cutting ribbons in Mesa every week with the projects that were completed with federal funds. And so I think we just have to give credit where credit is due. Again, I don't apologize for being a Republican, and there certainly are plenty of policy things that I disagree with the president on. But I do think it's appropriate to point out, particularly on a day like today, where he's announced his intention to end his career, I think it's appropriate for us to give credit where credit's due.
How do you see this playing out over the next 90 to 120 days before Election Day?
Yeah.
We're going to have a lot of folks trying to rally behind another candidate. We have one party, a ticket that's already established. A lot is going to unfold in the next in the coming months. How do you see this playing out, just politically?
I've got a big batch of popcorn ready at my house. This is really going to be very exciting, I think. It'll be interesting to see how the Democrats come up with who their ticket's going to be. There's rumors that there might even be an Arizonan on that ticket. So I think this just got a whole lot more interesting, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
And do you think if Kamala Harris remained the nominee and you had the opportunity, which you would, you'd still be in office, would you endorse her?
Well, I think today's not the day to answer that question. I do think she's well prepared. I think she is going to hit the ground running. She's inherited the entire infrastructure from the campaign that she's been part of. So that's, In Arizona alone, that's over 1,000 people and I think 15 or 16 campaign offices. So clearly, I think she's in the driver's seat when it comes to getting the Democratic nomination. But it'll be fascinating to see how that unfolds over the next few days and weeks, and I'll make a decision on who I'm voting for when the time is right.
Well, let me put it this way. Do you see yourself endorsing Donald Trump?
Well, let me say this about Donald Trump. I think we all were very shaken by the assassination attempt. I think that it did change things, and frankly I watched the Republican convention, and I appreciated what I detected a little bit of a change of tone in Donald Trump, and I thought maybe there's some there. Maybe this guy's turned a corner, and so I was encouraged to see that. But I was disappointed, a few hours ago to see his reaction to the news today. He went low again, and so I don't know. I couldn't. I think one of the things I liked about Joe Biden was the respect for the rule of law. When things did not go his way in judicial decisions, he didn't accuse anyone of corruption. He expressed perhaps his disagreement with it, but he respected it, even when it was impacting members of his family and members of his administration. So to me, there are a few bars you got to get over, whether a Republican or a Democrat, before I think you ought to be taken seriously as a candidate. In the past, I haven't been able to get Donald Trump over those bars. And I don't know if that's going to change.
All right. Mayor Giles, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Giles, for the conversation. We do appreciate it. You've been watching live breaking news coverage of President Joe Biden announcing his decision to drop out of the upcoming race for the White House in November. That ends our coverage right here digitally. We will have complete coverage on TV coming up at the top of the hour at 3 o'clock. For Bram Resnick, I'm Jonathan McCall. You've been watching 12 News.